In the haze of the 1960s, when the youth of the world marched to new rhythms, a strange idea began to flicker. What if the soundtrack of the era wasn't born in smoke-filled clubs or the restless spirit of teenagers, but engineered in a quiet London office? The Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, founded in 1947, it was a real place, a think tank where psychologists and social scientists studied the human mind. Yet, by the 1970s, conspiracy theorists had begun spinning a wilder story. They claimed Tavistock didn't just study people, it controlled them. And its greatest tool, they said, was rock and roll. The first public warning came in 1965. Reverend David A. Noble wrote Communism, Hypnosis, and the Beatles, alleging that Beatlemania itself was no accident. He claimed that communist agents, through psychological tactics like Ivan Pavlov's conditioned reflex experiments, were using the Beatles to brainwash Western teenagers. It was a bold charge, connecting pop music to communism, hypnosis, and youth rebellion. But the story didn't stop there. In the 1970s, political activist Lyndon LaRouche published claims tying the Beatles to British intelligence and those services through Tavistock. According to him, the Beatles weren't just musicians. They were the product of psychological warfare against American culture. Then came Dr. John Coleman, a former British intelligence officer turned full-time conspiracy theorist. Coleman's 1991 book, Conspirators' Hierarchy, the story of the Committee of 300, argued that Tavistock had orchestrated the entire 1960s counterculture movement. He even claimed that Theodor Adorno, a German sociologist and musicologist, secretly wrote Beatles music to inject hidden messages. Coleman stretched his theory to include other bands like Pink Floyd, suggesting a sprawling plan to destabilize traditional values through sex, drugs, and rock and roll. By the 2000s, these theories had taken on a life of their own, online. Writers like Daniel Estelin and influencers such as Olavo de Carvalho, they revived them for new audiences. In some corners of the internet today, it's still argued that Tavistock, the CIA, and British intelligence funded and shaped bands like the Beatles and Pink Floyd to conduct vast social experiment disguised as rock and roll. Yet the historical record tells a far simpler story. The Tavistock Institute was and remains a modest London research center, focused on workplace dynamics, community health, and mental well-being. In the 1960s, their work involved management theory and psychiatric counseling, not music charts. At its peak, Tavistock only had about 30 employees, and there's no credible evidence in its archives linking the institute to the production or promotion of popular music. As for the Beatles, their beginnings were humble and real. Formed in Liverpool in 1960, they spent grueling nights performing cover songs in Hamburg's rough clubs, learning the craft the hard way. John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison were teenagers chasing a dream, later joined by Ringo Starr. Their songwriting partnership blossomed long before fame found them. Producer George Martin helped refine their sound, but the creative spark, it was all their own. Pink Floyd's story followed a different path, but a similarly organic one. Formed in London in 1965, the band emerged from the underground psychedelic scene. Their early performances at venues like the UFO Club combined music and light shows in ways that were experimental and self-directed. Syd Barrett, Roger Waters, Nick Mason, and Richard Wright crafted a sound that evolved with their experiences, not according to a secret script. The conspiracy theories ignored the messy, unpredictable nature of real human creativity. They assumed a level of centralized control that history simply does not support. They also miss a deeper truth that cultural revolutions often grow not from secret plans, but from small acts of rebellion, imagination, and chance. In the end, the rise of bands like the Beatles and Pink Floyd remind us of something enduring, that the spirit of innovation, the willingness to imagine something new and share it with the world, belongs not to committees or conspiracies, but out to the restless hearts of ordinary people, just like you. The real story is not about control. It's about the extraordinary things that happen when young minds dared to believe that they can and will shape the world. These are Interesting Things with JC.